Hey there. I hope you're having a good day. I've been having a pretty rough day, but I'm hanging in there and I keep on trucking. If you know, you know. um, anyway, just trying to take it day by day, but sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's easy, but I'm hanging in there. Anyway, about a week or two ago, I thought of a question that you may have heard before, or you may have been asked before, or maybe you may have heard someone else answer this question. And I'm sorry, there's a siren just passing by right when I make this video, but it's okay. Anyway, where was I? You've probably heard this question, or you've probably answered this question yourself, or you've probably heard someone else answer this question. And that is, would you rather know when you will die or how you will die? And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking how all of the people that, in my experience, have answered this question, all of them have answered, well, I want to know when I will die. Because, and usually when you ask them their reasoning, they'll usually say, well, because that way I know how much time I have so I can check off all the things off my bucket list. And that's a fair point. It's a very good point, but I was thinking about it more closely, and I remember someone answered this question and they said, well, obviously I want to know how or when I will die, because if I know how I will die, for example, if the answer was cancer, then what am I going to do about it? And that was a fair explanation as to why my friend would want to know when he will die instead of how he will die. But I was still thinking of it more deeply than that, or at least I have recently been thinking about it more deeply. And I think if there was a crystal ball and it was possible for me to be able to know something about the future, and that something is when I will die or how I will die, and I get to choose which one I want to know, I think for me, I wouldn't want to know anything about whether the cause of my death is going to be cancer or a car accident. I wouldn't want to know how I will die, and I wouldn't want to know when I will die. And I'll elaborate more. I wouldn't want to know the answer to any of those two questions, for me, personally for me. And now that this is just my opinion about it, but I think for me, knowing how I am and knowing how my brain works sometimes, if I choose to know when I will die and the crystal ball said to me, well, you will die in 15 years from now, okay, I'd probably make a list of all the things I want to do in those 15 years before I die. And I'd be so busy trying to get those things on the list done before I die that I'd forget to live in the process. Because to a certain extent, I would forget about being, because I would be so caught up in the doing of my life, doing this bucket list item, doing this experience before I die, going out, I don't know, skydiving. That's something I would really want to do. But for me, I would be so focused on the doing that I just forget about the being, what it means to be a human being, or what it means to just be existence, what it means to just be and be who I am, you know? And so I think I would not want to know when I will die. And I also would not want to know how I will die. Because if I knew how I would die and the crystal ball says to me, okay, Megan, you're gonna die in a car accident, I'd be so petrified about getting into any cars, because knowing me, I'd probably want to outsmart death and buy myself a little bit more time. And so I'd just be so mortified about just living my life, because I'm not living a life of freedom, I'm living a life with certain limitations, because I think that those limitations will bring my demise, so I try and avoid them. And for example, if the crystal ball said, well, Megan, you're gonna die of cancer, I think I'd probably, knowing me, I'd probably become a hypochondriac, and I'd be scared of all the germs and all the inorganic things and all the particles in the environment, because in my mind I'd probably want to buy myself more time and prevent the inevitable. So the inevitable is that I'm going to die. I know that for sure. I'm very, very aware of that. But do I have to know when I will die or how I will die to experience freedom in this lifetime? And by freedom, I think I talked about it in a different video, about how you can't free yourself from your circumstances, from like the external stuff that's happening around you, because sometimes it's inevitable, or you're born into certain situations that make it hard to get by. And although you can't free yourself from those circumstances, you can totally free yourself from your mind. It just takes believing that you can free yourself from your mind and from the stories of your mind. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on this, because I still struggle with this all the fucking time. But when I have allowed myself to break away from the shackles of my mind, I'm able to experience this freedom, this expansion, this, for lack of a better term, this oneness. But I guess the feeling is indescribable. And so I just want to live a life of freedom, a life where my heart is free, a life where I can use my mind as a tool, but it doesn't control me. It hasn't hijacked me, myself. By myself, I mean my beingness, outside of Megan, outside of my roles, outside of my characters. Outside of all of that, who am I? And I want to experience that beingness, that just beingness, that this lens, right? This lens of perspective. It's a point of view that consciousness is exploring itself. And there's another siren. I used to hate sirens. I used to hate sirens. And I'd always get pissed off whenever a siren would pass by because the sounds are so jarring. And it's been proven that loud noises or very jarring sounds, piercing sounds, actually mess with your emotional state. And I'd always get pissed off when a siren would pass. But then one day I was thinking how sirens are a reminder of death. And death is uncomfortable, just like the sound of a siren is uncomfortable. The thought of death, or death itself, is an uncomfortable thing to think about. That's how I can put it. And so, if you think about it, the people that are in those sirens are probably dying or in very precarious situations. And it's a reminder of death. It's an uncomfortable sound. And it's an uncomfortable reminder of death. But I guess every time I hear a siren, it's like, oops, a light pops up and I start thinking about, oh, yeah, my mortality. But anyway, I don't want to sound grim. I feel like most of my topics have recently been quite grim, but it's part of life. You've got to explore a little bit of the grim. So I hope you're having a great day, and enjoy your life. Peace and love. Bye.